enter, right? Bandwagon effect. Now, anchoring is another one. People rely too heavily on the first piece of information they receive. So the first time you learn about something, you think you're correct because you found the information, you're like, okay, this must be correct. But once you've formed a belief, it's very hard to change that belief because you've gone from having no belief to a belief, right? It's easier to form a belief than change a belief, right? So what's an example? Well, in bear markets, we just acknowledge that we're in a bear market. And we just automatically assume that, yep, we're in a bear market, we're just going to continue to be in a bear market. But when everyone has formed the belief that we are now in a bear market, we tend to just hold that belief. We don't like listening to new information that says, hey, we might be at the beginning of a bull run, right? And that's what causes the initial uptrend in the bull run, or at least the first half of the bull run. Let's look at Bitcoin, right? You can see here, people here think the bear market's still on, right? And slowly people starting to think, okay, maybe the bear market isn't here anymore. And then up here, everyone's like, bear market over, and then price crashes. And up here, right, people starting to think, okay, maybe the bear market isn't here anymore. And then people go, okay, yep, the bear market is not here. And then they're like, yep, bull market, bull market, bull market, bull market, bull market. Yep, we're in a bull run. This is the assumed state that we're in. We're just going to continue to be in a bull run. People ignore the new information, the new belief that, hey, we're actually, maybe potentially at the start of a bear market. Fed's raising interest rates, the money printer's turned off, maybe it's time to change our belief. Nope, they don't get out, they end up losing all their money, right? So that's anchoring. And I think, one more, which is hindsight bias. So how many of you guys have done this? You've saw a coin or an NFT or something, you wanted to buy, you didn't, and then it goes up and you go, oh, I knew I should have bought. Damn it. I looked at it and I knew I should have bought it. Everyone's done this. Now, if everyone has done something, it's probably not significant, because if everyone's done it, it means all the retards have done it, right? And you don't want to just, if you're doing the same shit as the retards, then you're not very smart. So coming to 80% of the conclusion to buy is not enough, right? I knew I should have bought, blah, 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 blah. You didn't buy, which meant that you weren't fully convinced, right? And the thing is, everyone does this. Everyone is able to identify at least 70 to 80% of the reason of why they should buy. But it's that final 20% where people just can't pull the trigger, or they pull the trigger and it doesn't go in their favor, right? So this bias of, oh, I knew I should have bought, blah, 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 it's just making you feel more competent than you actually are, right? It's making you think that you're a good investor and that you were so close, right? Oh, I almost bought, but you didn't buy. There's no second place trophy. There's no participation trophy. You either bought and made money, or you didn't buy and you fucked up. You need to assume that if you did not buy, you completely messed it up, and that you should be trying to completely fix the system, not saying, oh, I almost bought, it's okay, I'll find the next one. No, if you didn't buy, there's a flaw in your system and you need to fix it. There's a flaw in your process and you need to fix it. Don't let this bias of, oh yeah, I almost bought it, so I'm like pretty much good enough, I'll get it next time. Don't let that, make you complacent, right? Hindsight bias. Everything seems easier in hindsight. You always look at the past and go, oh, I knew I should have sold earlier. I knew I should have sold later. There's no lesson in looking at selling earlier or later. The only lesson is that you need a process, you need a strategy. And if you don't have that, you're just not going to make money. So here's some of the biggest important takeaways from this topic. Number one, if you ever catch yourself saying, another bull run can never happen, we're just going to be bearish forever, which is what everyone was fucking saying down here, right? Or let's say the opposite, we're in a new paradigm, prices can't crash again, like what they were saying up here, like super cycle. People were saying super cycle, like we're never going to have a bigger dip than a 30% retracement because we have buybacks of crypto products so that, the token never goes down far because we're buying it back, from the open market. All this bullshit, right? Prices always crash and they always rally. There's always bear markets and there's always bull markets. This is inevitable. Market cycles repeat because humans are the same. Okay? Crypto was volatile, nothing changed, there was no reason to think that we couldn't crash. Like highly unregulated, highly volatile, none of this stuff is proven to work. It's all new, a lot of it's a scam, like obviously it's going to crash, right? You need to understand in lesson 2 that you need to understand every cognitive bias so that you know what not to do in your own investing, right? If you can identify all the potential problems, and then you can ask yourself, with a certain investment, like how could this go wrong? And then you list off all the potential cognitive biases. Well, I could buy this coin, lose money, and then I could think, oh, I just need to keep holding this because there's good news coming out, right? You identified the cognitive bias, and now you know that you need to avoid it. So, for example, if everyone hates a coin and you just subconsciously agree, bandwagon effect, you also, you need to catch yourself and do the opposite of what everyone is saying. So that's another example of cognitive bias, using it to your own advantage. It's sort of like you need to become self-aware of your instincts. If you're self-aware of every form of instinct that you possibly feel, you can counter-trade it, right? It's sort of like the concept of lucid dreaming. You're able to lucid dream because you've trained yourself through building a habit to constantly check your awareness, so that when you're sleeping, because of this habit your brain has built, it triggers during the sleep. And when it triggers during the sleep, you actually wake up while you're sleeping. And that allows you to what's called lucid dream, control your dreams, because you have built a habit of checking yourself. It's the same thing with investing. If you train a habit of checking yourself for all the cognitive biases you could be feeling, you're able to become aware when they're playing out. Because sometimes you'll implement a cognitive bias, or most of the time, you'll implement a cognitive bias without even recognizing it. Like so many times I'll go on Twitter and I'll see everyone hating on a coin, and I'll just let the cognitive bias of bandwagon effect take over me. I won't even look into buying the coin because I'll just accept that, oh, it must be shit, everyone's hating on it. But I should have been buying. So many times this has happened. I remember a big one was this BSV coin. BSV was okay, that's a bad photo of a chart. BSV was a fork of Bitcoin, and it launched in the last bear market. And where was this? Where am I going to find the full price history for this one? Anyway, I'll draw the chart for you. Basically, BSV launched and it crashed like 80-90% in a very shortish period of time, a few weeks, I think. And everyone was saying this coin's going to die. And Loomdart on Twitter was talking about BSV, saying this is an easy trade, like easy counter sentiment trade. He bought it at like $90. This was in the bear market where there was zero opportunities. He caught a 3 to 4x on that investment. Now, I could have bought when he was saying to buy it because I could have just understood that it was at a point of max fear and there was asymmetric upside in case any good news came out. But I didn't, because I just listened to everyone on Twitter saying that it was bad and I shouldn't buy it. So that's an example of the lesson. And last but not least, in markets, you get paid for doing what your instincts tell you. You get paid for doing what your instincts, for doing the opposite, of what your instincts tell you to do. You get rich ignoring the evolutionary evolved instincts which no longer protect you but harm you, okay? So let's go over a couple more examples and then we'll finish this up. So here's Kun, however you want to say it. He's put a few examples on Twitter. I hadn't seen these mentioned anywhere, so I figured I'd include them because I figured they were really useful. Deprival superreaction. So we hate things taken away from us. So people buy a coin at a high price, then the bear market comes, they lose money, and instead of thinking critically, they react with, oh, I'll just hold it to break even, right? So let's draw this on the chart. Let's do it on Solana, for example. Solana's looking good. I want to refrain from giving price biases or guides in this video because you're going to look at this in a year and go, oh, he was wrong or some bullshit. I don't like price predictions. Anyway, for example, you buy Solana here, you make some money, bull market, bear market begins, and then now price is like down here, you're in a loss. Fuck. 3 months later, I'm in a loss. I'll just keep holding it because, I can't sell at a loss. I'll just hold it till it goes back to break even, right? I'll wait for it to go up here and then I'll sell. Well, price goes down and then it gets close to your break even, which is here, right? It's here, but nope, doesn't quite get there. You never sell, and then you end up riding it all the way down, right? So we hate things being taken away from us. We hate that the market takes our money. And so we never sell the position, because if we sell, we are accepting the fact that the market took our money. But if we wait for price to go back to break even potentially, then the market never took our money and we never were deprived of anything. But the problem is, when you are not willing to realize a loss and you let this bias affect your decision making, you are no longer thinking critically and you are just being emotional and you will lose money. Okay? Another one is inconsistency, avoidance tendency. Basically, people don't like change. They have an inertia, a fear of change. And once they believe a certain belief, it's hard to change their belief. That's like what we talked about before. Forming a belief is easy. Changing a belief is hard. And that's why Kuhn says you should avoid adding .eth or .sol to your name, or whatever it is. Like I actually added Solana to like $400 or something in my Twitter name back in the last bull run, and it almost came true. But when you do things like that, it makes that a part of your identity. And when something's a part of your identity, it's harder to think critically, similar to here. When you have this bias, you don't think critically. When you have this bias, you don't think critically. So you need to be fluid, and you need to not attach your identity to any particular coin, because the coin is just a vehicle to make money from. And once you've made the money from it and you've thought critically and it's now time to exit, you exit and you find the next one. So yeah, and if you add shit like .eth or .sol to your bio, or whatever the coin is that you're holding, you're just making it harder on yourself to change your belief when it's time to sell. And last but not least, doubt avoidance tendency. So doubt is painful, right? We don't like the idea of the unknown, of not feeling confident in a decision. So we like to reach decisions quickly without full consideration. This is why when you buy a coin, you ask yourself what could go right. But you guys never ask yourself what could go wrong. And this is where the best investors are different to how you guys probably are investing. The best investors always look at the downside. They always focus mostly on the downside. They always ask themselves, what could go wrong? How would I lose? How could this go badly? That is what they focus on, because they're ignoring the bias, the tendency to avoid doubt. Instead, you need to go head on into doubt. Leverage the doubt, the pain, to figure out whether the investment could lose you money or if it's a good investment. So an example he gave was, negative news on a project leads you to avoid delving deeper into the negative news, preferring not to entertain the possibility that the project is in trouble. That's a really good example, and that's a classic example. Yeah, that used to happen to me as well. Like I'd be holding something, and then it's clear that the fundamentals of the project are changing, but you don't want to, give yourself doubt on the investment, so you ignore it. You get complacent. And then, over time, the investment doesn't make you much money. And then you're like, fuck, why did I keep holding that thing? I should have, looked into it and figured out if it was a good investment or not with this new information. So yeah, every day, the way that you need to approach it is that there's new information at all times. And you need to constantly be taking in this new information. And eventually, you're going to take in a new piece of information which spits out a different conclusion. So let's say you like the coin Topia, right? And you're taking in new information daily about basically this coin. You like it. Maybe something comes out where you no longer like the coin. And you have to let that new information dictate your opinion. You can't just ignore the bad information and keep a good opinion. You take in the bad information, you let it, with no bias, dictate what you believe, and then you implement. Okay? So that's the end of the video. This is just a bit of an overview of market cycles. avoiding cognitive biases, how you can leverage your cognitive biases to make you money, and sort of why market cycles exist. So hope you guys found this useful, and I'll see you in the next part of this new section. Cheers.